Hey guys, how's it going? Hope everyone is doing well, staying safe, keeping things sanitized. I've got a comparison video for you today that should be a lot of fun. All of these are knives that are identified as fantastic everyday carry options, and all of these I would say are primarily geared toward that particular sort of role. I guess I wouldn't call these hard use or tactical or bushcrafting knives. I would call all of these EDC style knives. And so I want to do a comparison here because all of these are highly recommended Spydercos, highly loved Spydercos. And in fact, a few months ago when I did that series of videos where I asked you guys to sort of say, hey, which knife would you recommend if you could like magically put a knife in everyone's pocket? And the Para 2 was the winner there, but both of these got some good showing in that particular discussion. Okay, so we're going to do a bit of a showdown here between all of these knives. The Spyderco Manix 2, now this is the lockback. We're going to imagine that it's a standard version. The Spyderco Spydiechef, and finally the Spyderco Paramilitary 2. Again, this is the S35 VN Sprint run, but we're going to imagine it's a standard version. Now, I do want to say one thing about that. Keep in mind that as a standard version, regular production, there is the S110V version available in the Para 2 and the Manix 2. Okay, so that's something to keep in the back of your mind, and I will bring that up a couple of times. Of course, the other option or the other sort of standard variation of the Manix is going to be the lightweight, and that has to be kind of at least measured within this whole comparison as well. All right, so let's go ahead and get started, beginning with size and weight. And so what I'll do is kind of give you a quick rundown, and I'll try to just work through as we go. So overall size on these 8¼ inches, 8 inches, and 7 7/8 inches. Handle and blade length, we've got 3½ inches, 3½ inches, 3 3/8 inches. Handle length over here. Well, I'm going to worry about grip area in this case. So you've got 3½ inches plus a choil for grip here. You've got let me double check that number. You've got 3 3/4 plus a choil here, which is quite generous. And then you've got about 3 3/4 here, no choil option. Okay. So that's what we're dealing with in terms of grip area, blade length. Finally, the weight on each of these, we've got 3.9 ounces here, 4.2 ounces here, and 3.7 ounces here. However, keep in mind that the standard Manix, the one with G10 and stainless steel, is going to actually weigh in around 5 ounces, while the lightweight is going to be around 3 ounces. Okay, so there's a pretty big variance there that definitely needs to kind of be taken into consideration. Now, having given you all those numbers, I still would say there's a pretty clear winner in terms of how easy it is to carry, how much weight you have to deal with. Let's see if I can get these to sit up on their backs. I don't know if it's going to work, but okay. Yeah, so I will say I think there's a pretty clear winner in terms of what you have to carry versus the capabilities that you get from that, and that is going to be pretty clearly the Spydiechef. It's very lightweight, very slim. It is almost invisible in pocket, and yet you still have a pretty capable knife when you get this out to do some work with it. Okay, so on that first category, in terms of how much you have to carry versus how much you can do, I think the Spydiechef is a pretty strong contender, and we're going to call it the winner just in terms of weight to blade length, weight to slimness, and comfort in pocket, all that kind of stuff. The Spydiechef really shines here. You really don't even know you've got it with you, and so it definitely gets to win this particular challenge in terms of size, weight, and carry. Moving on now to the blades. The blades, I think, it's going to be a little bit of a tougher conversation because there's a lot more to consider. Okay, the first thing to point out is, as I said, I would mention from time to time, these are available in S110V. Okay, so S30V and S30V. S30V is a great steel. I really enjoy it. I have no complaints about it whatsoever. However, S110V is definitely a step up and does, still come well under the price of this guy. So that needs to be considered as we're kind of working this all out. And in S110V, that's really going to, cause a bit of a delay on my part. Okay. Now, of course, let's just run down the features of these blades first. Okay, so we've got a full flat ground blade here, slightly more than 1/8 of an inch stock, pretty fine tip. Again, we've got similar stock size here, full flat ground, once again, leaf shape, fine tip again on this guy. Now look at the stock thickness here. This is thinner stock and still has a pretty fine point, but not nearly as pronounced. Okay, so these two, you could almost kind of compare them, but notice the tip is going to be quite a bit different on the Spydiechef. That's going to do a couple of things. One, this tip is actually going to be a little more durable. If I was going to drop all of these, which I'm not, I would still, I would recommend not dropping any of these because there is a good chance you'll break that tip off. So don't do it. But there is a little more confidence in this tip, I would suggest, than these other two, with the Para being the finest, the Manix being next, and then finally the Spydiechef. Now, this dimension, it's very, very thin. You could say slicey, or sliciest. I would suggest that's how these kind of stack up. What do we do with all of that information? Okay, because frankly, yeah, these are going to do better, side to side strength because of the extra thickness. However, how often are you going to jam your knife that far into something before you start, we're really worried about strength at the tip, and at the tip, they're pretty darn comparable. Now, in terms of slicing performance, you're definitely going to see a substantial difference coming from the Spydiechef because it's such a thin blade. It's designed for kitchen work and therefore very, very thin, very, very slicey. Now, these other two being more designed for EDC stuff, they're not quite as thin. Now, the other consideration here is edge holding, all right? And LC200N is definitely good. Now, many have commented, and the main thing about LC200N is that it is basically corrosion proof. Okay, but that corrosion ability, right, comes with a bit of a trade-off, and that is the edge retention is not going to be as good as the S110V or the S30V, all right? So this becomes a tough choice, and the choice really comes down, I think, to personal need. All right, so if you're in a situation where you need that very, very stainless type of steel, if you're working around water all the time, if you're a fisherman, if you live in a humid area where there's a lot of humidity and even a lot of salt in the air, you live right on the ocean in a hot climate, those are all good reasons that you could justify owning LC200N steel. Another good option, and this is something I tried a couple of times and it just doesn't work. I have tried to carry a knife in my bunker gear and just leave it there and kind of forget about it, but it doesn't work well because bunker gear has a tendency to get wet, and over, a couple of months' time, if you're not taking that knife out and using it and cleaning it up all the time, they rust pretty good, okay? Take it from someone who's tried it. Now, if you were to drop this guy in your pocket and forget about it, I think it would fare very well. So that is one potential, right? If this is the knife that's going to bounce around in the bottom of your tackle box, in the bottom of a pocket that gets wet all the time, like if there's a constant issue with moisture for whatever your uses are, then that moves this quite high up the list. Okay, number one. Number two, if the primary job you're doing with your folder is food prep, all right, that again moves this up the list. The thing for me is I don't do a lot of food prep with my folding knives. I've got a kitchen with kitchen knives in it, and so if I'm going to cut up an apple, I rarely take my folder out and do it. I normally just use, the block of kitchen knives that's sitting right there by the cutting block. So this is tough, guys. So now I've given you all this data. Can I declare a real winner? And the answer for me is not really, because this one has special abilities, if you will. Okay, now so does the S110V. They're just slightly different abilities in terms of cutting performance. And I did cut a bunch of stuff with these side by side. if you're cutting, let's say, an apple, okay, you'll notice a bit of a difference. That was the only time. So again, if you do a lot of apple cutting, then maybe the Spydiechef is the way to go, especially, with the acid that's in apple juice. Hey, it might be worthwhile. For regular EDC, I can't say that I need the extra stainless capability. You can see I've had this knife forever. I've had this knife for less, but still quite a long time. There's no rust. Okay, I don't have a problem with rust on my knives, even my D2 knives, which are not stainless. I've had a number of them for many, many years, and I don't have any rust on them. So it's not a huge consideration for me. And so I'm going to say all of these blades are very good, capable EDC blades, and just call it a tie. I know that was a lot of talking for a tie, but there was a lot of detail to go over there, guys. Okay, now let's come down to the action. All right, lockup and deployment. Well, we've got everyone's favorite compression lock on the PM2. We have the lock back here on my Manix lock back, but normally, all right, we're talking about the ball bearing lock, and then of course a very well-known frame lock over here. Deployment, this one rolls out very nicely. It also spider flicks very nicely. Okay, same with the PM2. I can do a thumb flick. I can do a Spidey flick. I can do a roll. Now I can't really do a thumb flick with this one. I can just do like a roll. This guy doesn't flick. Okay. However, the Manix with the bearing lock definitely flips better. So in terms of the fun factor on the action, I would say the Para 2 probably comes in at the front of the list with the Spydiechef. And then now for me, I'm not a huge fan of the bearing lock. So I know some of you really, really like it. I never really liked the whole process of having to grip the knife down here and pull it back. And then, yeah, it was pretty fun, but it was never quite as good as the axis lock that it was sort of trying to be. I know it's not the same. I know it's quite a bit different, but you get what I'm saying there. Okay, it was Spyderco's answer to compete with the axis lock. So for me, the compression lock gets it. All right, I like the compression lock best. I know that it's not as strong. This is not so much a contest of strength. It's a contest of usability. And for me, the compression lock is a little more just enjoyable to use than the others. All right, is it a huge, huge thing? No. All right, to me, flicking a knife is not the end of the world. I don't really feel like it's necessary. Keep in mind, out of all the brands that are out there, I have the most cold steels. Okay, and cold steels, the locks are notoriously not fidget friendly. So I don't really care about that. And so, but I do find the ease of use on the compression lock very, very high. And so I'm going to call it the winner. You're more than welcome to agree with me. If you're going to do that, please let me know why down in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Okay, moving on now to the handles. So we've got a lot of stuff to talk about here. Of course, this one is going to be representative. Okay, so G10 nested stainless steel liners. Here on the standard or the S110V, we're going to have G10 stainless steel, some proud little jimps on the liners here. Of course, if you go to the lightweight, it's going to be FRN. And then we've got the famous titanium frame lock, Chris Reeve integral lock, titanium handle. Now, how do they all feel in hand? Ergonomics, guys, I've got to just tell you, to me, and I think there are others out there who would argue along these lines. The Para 2 is good, okay, very good. The Manix is fantastic. All right, this one in particular is even better because it's just a little bit thicker, but I find the Manix to be absolutely ideal in terms of the ergonomics. The Spydiechef is good, but that's about all I can say for it. All right, it's definitely not uncomfortable, but it's not. It's not even in the same ballpark as the Manix. Less so the Para 2. Okay. So in terms of ergonomics, I'm definitely giving it to the Manix. In terms of construction, that's a different question, and it really becomes very subjective. So do you prefer stainless steel liners? Do you prefer the lightweight? Do you prefer titanium? Of course, if you're more into the higher end stuff, titanium may be the way to go. If you really like that, what would you say? The fancier, more exotic things you like to show off to your friends, that kind of stuff, sure, I can get behind wanting a titanium frame lock, no question. I love titanium frame locks, but you know, it becomes a pretty tough call. So in terms of ergonomics, the winner is definitely the Manix. Again, the other considerations are this guy is not going to corrode on you. So, if you need that, well, then there's an obvious choice. All right, let's get into now our final little bit of a discussion, and that is value. So PM2s these days are $150, which seems insane. That's the Blade HQ price as of the recording of this video. Okay, I know you can find them cheaper every once in a while, and of course, if you're following this channel and if you're using it, there are some discount codes out there, so you can use Sharp Stuff to save 10% on any of these. Well, this one I don't think you're going to find very many places, but you can use Sharp Stuff at Southern Edge Knife Works or at wow, I want to say Warriors and Wonders, and I'm completely blanking on White Mountain Knives. Sorry, guys. So White Mountain Knives, you'll save 10%. Southern Edge Knife Works, you'll save 15%. I'll let you compare and do the math on that because they probably have different list prices, so you'll have to figure out which one is best for you. Same Spydiechef here, I think is available at both of those locations. I will also put a link to my Amazon store where you can find some of these if you want to try it that way. But there's a big discussion here. So we've got 150 here. We've got 235, okay? 235 on the Spydiechef, and the Manix is going to cost you 120. It's going to be, the lightweight is going to be like $100. And then if you go to the S110V version of either this or this, and the Para 2 is going to cost you 185, and the Manix is going to cost you 170. All right, so that gives you an idea of what kind of prices you're looking at for all of this, and what kind of, so let's now that we know the prices, let's ask, what am I getting for my dollar? All right, and frankly, in terms of performance, unless you specifically need the sort of special ability that this knife has, which is very cool, okay, this is, a knife that can't rust, that's pretty awesome. But if you don't need it, and if you don't have a problem with rust, then it's hard to justify in terms of the other areas of this knife's performance to take it over either one of these two. And perhaps you want to go up, you could still go to the S110V Para 2 at 185. And I know you can probably get it cheaper elsewhere. I think I've checked Blade HQ for that price. So you go to 185 for the Para 2 in S110V, and you're still $50 cheaper than this guy's going to be. And S110V is a very, very highly corrosion resistant steel as well. Not as good as this, of course, but good. And the edge retention is going to be off the charts. Okay, so in the value equation, that's a little bit different discussion, and that's where, if you need what the Spydiechef can do, or you like it, okay? Lots of people buy really nice titanium frame locks because they like titanium frame locks, and I don't blame them. I like them too, okay? But if you want that high-end material, high-end performance, you're going to have to pay a little extra for it. Otherwise, for a good EDC knife, either one of these are going to do the trick just fine for you. So look, as a reviewer, how would I kind of wrap this up? Which one would I call the real winner? I think, in terms of value, performance, ergonomics, cutting power, all that kind of stuff, out of these three, if I had to get rid of the others, okay, and I don't plan to, and I don't want to, but I would take the Manix. I really would, in some variation, maybe the S110V, maybe the lightweight, if it's just for EDC tasks. This is my particularly favorite version. And out of these, if I had to get rid of them, I would keep this one over these two. But the fact is, these are all great, and you really can't go wrong, right? If I had to close my eyes and pick one of these knives every morning to carry, and I never knew which one it was going to be, guess what? I wouldn't care because I'd be happy with all of them. These are all fantastic knives. To me, the Manix does come out on top in this little comparison, especially because of value. This is the first time I'd seen a pair of two for 150 bucks. I didn't know that they had, added a little more price to that. So that makes it a little easier yet to pick up a Manix over some of the others. Now, look, if you're a knife guy and you've never had a PM2, I think you need to have one. Okay. There's a reason people love it as much as they do. There really is. And I will say this, one area where the Para 2 does beat the Manix is in pocket. It's a little slimmer. And so I do appreciate that quite a lot. Okay, so there you go, guys. I'd love to see your discussion in the comments. Maybe you guys will just hate me and want to disagree with me vehemently. That's completely fine. You're totally within your rights to do that. But for me, the Manix is the winner. The Para 2 is second, and the Spydiechef, for its special abilities, kind of gets a different category. If for any reason you need a knife that just can't rust, of course, this one blows these two out of the water. But outside of that very specific niche need, okay, these are going to serve you extremely well. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to use those links. It does help the channel a whole lot. In fact, it's the only reason I can do what I do with this channel. So thanks a lot in advance. Thanks for watching. Hopefully I'd love to get into this in the comments with you. So make sure you get into that down below. Disagree with me, disagree with one another. Just have fun and be nice and wash your hands. We'll talk to you soon.